Look out on the highway and you'll see them everywhere. Big yellow engines powering Peterbilts, Kenworths, and Freightliners across America. But under that tough-sounding rumble hides a truth that's costing truckers thousands in repairs. These engines break down way more often than the ones that came before them, and truck owners are fed up. So what's really going on here? Are these C15 ACERT engines just plain junk compared to the bulletproof 3406E engines everybody loved? Did Caterpillar cut corners just to meet government rules? Or maybe they designed these engines to break down right after the warranty ends? Well, the real story is even crazier than you might think. Stick around with me, because I'm about to show you 5 shocking reasons why these Caterpillar C15 ACERT engines let down so many loyal truck owners. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what dealerships don't want you talking about. But before we get right into it, hit that like button and subscribe to see more videos that tell the real truth about trucks and engines. Now, before I tell you what went wrong with the C15 ACERT, you need to understand why truckers loved Caterpillar engines in the first place. For over 30 years, Caterpillar's 3406 engines, especially the 3406E, were the gold standard in American trucking. That yellow cat logo meant something special. It meant power and reliability that you could count on. At truck stops all across America, having a cat engine in your truck was like wearing a badge of honor. Truckers would literally brag about their pre-ACERT engines. When a truck with a Caterpillar engine drove by, everyone knew that the owner didn't cheap out. I've talked to old-timers who put 2 million miles on their pre-ACERT cat engines with just basic maintenance. Think about that, 2 million miles. These engines weren't just parts of a truck, they were investments that paid off year after year. That deep cat rumble meant something to American drivers. It meant power, quality, and engineered-to-last toughness. Which makes it even more confusing why the ACERT engines had so many problems. So let's break down what really happened. Reason number 1. The valve control system nobody asked for. The biggest reason these C15 ACERT engines disappointed so many people comes down to one major change. Caterpillar added something most truck owners had never heard of, the IVAS system. That's Intake Valve Actuation System, or sometimes called VVAS, Variable Valve Actuation System. Most truck owners have no idea how much trouble this one part causes. Now here's the shocking truth. Caterpillar didn't add this system because it made the engine better. They added it because the government forced them to. In 2004, the EPA, that's Environmental Protection Agency, started getting really strict about 2 things coming out of truck exhausts: black smoke, they call it particulate matter, and a gas called NOx. This IVAS system was Caterpillar's answer to the NOx problem. Now let me explain this in plain English. The IVAS system is basically an electronic gadget that can hold the engine's intake valves open longer than normal. This doesn't sound like a big deal, but it creates huge problems. When these systems fail, and trust me, they fail a lot, your engine starts throwing error codes that only the dealer can fix. This happens constantly in repair shops across the country. The wiring wears out, the controls fail, and suddenly you're looking at thousands of dollars in repairs. Truck owners get stuck with massive bills, never realizing that this one emissions control system is the reason their engine keeps breaking down. Now here's what makes it worse. When the IVAS system fails, your engine might still run, but it runs at reduced power. It's like driving with the parking brake on. You burn more fuel and you get less power. Truckers hate this problem, but they have no choice because of how Caterpillar designed these engines. And it's not just a small problem either. It affects how the whole engine works. The system is so complicated that even Caterpillar's own mechanics hate working on them. I've talked to Cat mechanics who rolled their eyes when an ACERT rolls into the shop with valve control problems. Even diagnosing the problem is a nightmare. When these systems throw error codes, you can't clear them yourself. You need special dealer software that costs thousands of dollars. Most independent shops don't have this software, so you're forced to go to the dealer and pay whatever they charge. So why would Caterpillar design an engine with such obvious problems? Well, here's where it gets interesting. Some people think these designs were actually meant to keep the trucks coming back to dealerships for repairs. Are these problems really just about meeting emissions rules? Or is there a hidden plan to keep repair shops busy and profitable? Now these valve control problems are just the beginning, but wait until you hear what the 2-turbo setup does to these engines. Drop a comment below if you've had problems with the Caterpillar C15 ACERT. Reason number 2. 2 turbos equals double trouble. Look at any high-mileage C15 ACERT engine and you'll notice something right away: overheating problems. Caterpillar added a two-turbo system. They call it a compound turbo system to meet emissions rules, but it created a heat nightmare. Almost every C15 ACERT with high miles faces this issue. They run too hot, break down too early, and cost owners a fortune. Here's the problem in America. Truck owners expect their engines to last at least 1.5 million miles. That's what the old Cat engines did. But with the C15 ACERT, many see turbo failures at around 750,000 miles. That's only halfway through the engine's expected life. When these turbos fail, drivers get stranded, towing bills add up, and repair costs can hit $5,000 to $10,000 each time. Now, this isn't just about turbos looking bad. The whole engine suffers. The C15 ACERT runs much hotter than older models. This heat puts stress on every part of the engine. It's especially bad when pulling heavy loads or climbing up mountains. There's just no room for error on those long cross-country hauls. The funny thing is, turbo failures used to be rare with the old single-turbo Cat engines. Those engines were overbuilt and basically lasted forever. Then the EPA rules kicked in. Caterpillar had to add a second turbo and crank up the boost pressure from around 30 psi to over 50 psi. Now, once they did that, temperature problems exploded. Now, truckers don't prefer older Cat engines just because they're set in their ways. They prefer them because they're more reliable on America's endless highways. When you're driving coast to coast, you need an engine that you can trust. With thousands of miles between service centers in some parts of the country, the twin-turbo system just doesn't hold up. So here's the dilemma. Caterpillar made engines with turbos that fail too early. Truck owners want reliability above all else. And going back to a single-turbo design, well, that would mean failing emissions tests and huge fines for Caterpillar. But maybe there's more to the story. Is it possible Caterpillar knew exactly what they were doing? Could the turbo failures be planned to get you back to the repair shop sooner? Well, here's something that most people don't realize. The two-turbo system on the C15 ACERT isn't just about meeting emissions rules. It's about trying to keep the same power levels while meeting those rules. Caterpillar was stuck between a rock and a hard place. Make an engine that passes emissions tests while still delivering the power their customers demand. For Caterpillar to permanently fix these problems, they'd need to completely redesign the cooling system. Now, that would cost millions of dollars in research and development. Why spend that money when they're already making a fortune selling replacement parts? The two-turbo disaster is bad enough, but wait until you hear how government regulations turned these engines into money pits. If these engine secrets are shocking you, hit that like button and subscribe for more trucking truth bombs. The next reason might be the most eye-opening yet. Reason number 3. Government rules changed everything. Now, meeting new environmental rules wasn't just hard for Caterpillar. It created wallet-emptying problems for truck owners. To meet the EPA's stricter emission standards, Caterpillar had to completely redesign their engines starting in 2004. But that was just the beginning of the trouble. The ACERT technology was a disaster waiting to happen. Caterpillar tried to reduce emissions without using EGR systems that other manufacturers were using. Now, at first, this seemed smart. EGR systems have their own problems. But what Caterpillar created instead was an overly complicated engine fighting against basic physics to meet government rules. These engines became ridiculously complex. Between the two turbos, the IVAS system, and later additions like DPF, diesel particulate filters, and ARD, after-treatment regeneration device heads in 2007 models, these engines turned into a tangled mess of sensors, controls, and parts all desperately trying to reduce emissions while maintaining power. For Caterpillar, the math just didn't work out. They had to meet emission standards, but they did it with systems that had some fundamental flaws. The cooling systems couldn't handle the extra heat. The electronic controls failed too often. But here's a question. Were these design flaws kept in place on purpose, making it impossible for owners to avoid expensive repairs? Well, let's talk some real money here. When an ACERT system fails, we're talking $5,000 to $10,000 in repairs each time. You need specially trained mechanics, expensive diagnostic computers, and genuine Caterpillar parts. The parts alone for a major repair can cost more than some older trucks are worth. Add in the performance losses from running these complex systems, and you're getting less reliability plus worse fuel economy. On top of all that, you're looking at repair bills that would take years to earn back through any supposed environmental benefits. You want proof? Look at what happened when pre-ACERT engines hit the used market. Their prices shot up because everyone knows they're more reliable. When a 20-year-old pre-2004 Caterpillar 3406E sells for more than a 10-year-old C15 ACERT, that tells you everything that you need to know. Now, I've talked to some fleet managers who specifically look for pre-ACERT engines and will pay tens of thousands more for older trucks just to avoid these problematic systems. Reason number 4. From simple and reliable to complex and problematic. Now, even if Caterpillar somehow fixed the IVAS system and turbo problems, one huge issue would still remain. The overall reliability took a nosedive. American trucking companies need bulletproof engines that just work, mile after mile. The C15 ACERTs have too many complex electronic systems that fail regularly. Without rock-solid reliability, no engine can succeed in the American market, no matter how good it looks on paper. Now, here's what happened behind the scenes. When Caterpillar built the pre-ACERT engines like the 3406E, they were simple, overbuilt, and designed to last basically forever. The newer C15 ACERT added dozens of new parts that could fail, electronic controls that could glitch, and components that simply didn't exist before emissions rules forced them to. This reliability drop is something you notice right away. Even a small failure in the ACERT system can throw off how the whole engine works. If any part of the emission system fails, it creates problems throughout the entire engine. It's like having one bad apple that spoils the whole barrel. The diagnostic headache is unreal. Your truck might suddenly lose power, throw strange error codes, or have problems that come and go, making them nearly impossible to track down. Trucks that used to run for decades with just basic maintenance were now in repair shops regularly for mysterious electronic failures. Reliability problems don't just hurt performance, they can cost some serious money. Diagnosing a C15 ACERT problem is a complex process that requires special knowledge and tools. We're talking thousands of dollars just to fix what should have worked correctly from the factory. Caterpillar would need to spend years and millions of dollars redesigning their systems to fix these basic flaws. And here's the thing. Why would they do that when they're already making tons of money selling replacement parts and charging for endless diagnostic procedures? Some people even suggest that with these known design flaws, Caterpillar has no reason to fix the problems, since the repair market is guaranteed to stay profitable. The more your engine needs repairs, the more money flows into Caterpillar's pockets. Then there's also the training challenge. Caterpillar would need to train thousands of mechanics who aren't familiar with these complex systems. American mechanics already know Caterpillar has reliability issues with ACERT engines. Different designs, different diagnostic steps, different repair methods. Retraining that entire workforce would be a massive undertaking. Then there's the special tools problem. Modern engines need brand-specific diagnostic computers and special tools for many repairs. Dealers spend tens of thousands of dollars on equipment just to service Caterpillar ACERT engines, with no guarantee of enough customers to make that investment worthwhile. The reliability problems are certainly a deal breaker, but the business decision behind it all might be the most surprising part of this story. If these engine secrets are blowing your mind, smash that like button and subscribe for more hidden trucking industry stories. The final reason reveals the business decision that changed everything. Reason number 5. Caterpillar's business decision. Now here's the simplest reason why Caterpillar C15 ACERT engines disappointed so many people. Caterpillar didn't need to make them any better. They dominated the American market where their brand loyalty worked perfectly for sales despite reliability issues. They were making money hand over fist in North America with decades of goodwill from previous engines carrying them forward. Truckers were willing to put up with problems because of their attachment to the brand and their positive experiences with previous Cat engines. For Caterpillar, focusing on their existing reputation made financial sense in the short term. Building truly reliable engines that also met emissions rules would mean huge costs, years of research, and completely rebuilding their approach to engine design. We're talking about potentially billions of dollars in development costs with no guarantee of success. Why spend that kind of money when they're already making a profit with what they have? The business case for a complete redesign just wasn't there. Now, in America, Caterpillar was the premium brand of engines for decades. They were top shelf, expensive, respect-commanding powerhouses that dominated the industry. Drivers requested them by name. Fleets paid extra to get them. Shifting focus to actual reliability while meeting even stricter emissions regulations might spread their resources too thin across their various product lines. Remember, truck engines are only one part of Caterpillar's business. They also make engines for construction equipment, generators, boats, and many other applications. Looking at Caterpillar's moves after the C15 ACERT tells the whole story about their long-term strategy. In 2010, they completely left the highway truck engine market rather than develop the next generation of emission systems. They focused instead on off-highway applications where emission standards were different and the engineering challenges more severe. That decision speaks volumes about what they really thought about the trucking engine business. They essentially said, "This market isn't worth the trouble anymore." Many loyal customers felt abandoned after decades of brand loyalty. Plus, the engine world was changing faster than many people realized. Even stricter Tier 4 standards were coming for all diesel engines. Caterpillar was putting their money into these new technologies instead of trying to fix their highway truck engine problems. Their focus on the other markets showed what mattered most to their bottom line. It was a business decision, pure and simple. They looked at the numbers and decided that the on-highway truck market wasn't profitable enough to justify the massive investment needed to stay competitive. There have been some exceptions to the reliability problems. Some C15 ACERTs performed reasonably well, especially earlier models with fewer emissions components. Many owners report good experiences with specific build dates or engine configurations. But as the regulations got stricter, the engines became increasingly complex and problematic. Now, it wasn't a uniform decline across all models, but the trend was definitely toward more problems and more complexity. So maybe it's not just about flaws or failures. Maybe Caterpillar simply chose to stay on top of where they could, then walk away when the game changed too much. Now, it's a strategy that makes sense from a business perspective, even if it left many loyal customers feeling betrayed. But in the end, Caterpillar had to do what was best for their shareholders, not necessarily what was best for their customers. That's the reality of business in today's world. So, is the Caterpillar C15 ACERT actually garbage? Well, the answer isn't simple. There's no specific law that made these engines terrible. But owning a C15 ACERT means dealing with so many maintenance problems that the legendary Cat reliability most people expected simply vanished. The engine still had impressive specs on paper: 15.2 liters of displacement, up to 625 horsepower, up to 2,050 pound-feet of torque. But specs don't tell the whole story when it comes to real-world reliability. In some cases, you might get lucky with a good one. Not every ACERT engine experiences every problem. Some owners reported hundreds of thousands of trouble-free miles. Now, the truth is, Caterpillar C15 ACERT engines aren't garbage because they're badly built. They're disappointing because of engineering choices, emissions compliance challenges, and the impossible task of meeting regulations while maintaining the power and reliability Cat was known for. They were trying to solve a nearly impossible equation, and the solution they came up with had some serious flaws. In some ways, they're actually worse than engines from the 1980s and 90s in terms of reliability and serviceability. Many older engines don't need the valve control replacements and turbo repairs that ACERT owners deal with constantly. They have simpler designs, better materials, and were built to last for generations. They might have used more fuel and produced more emissions, but they kept trucks moving reliably day after day, year after year. There's something to be said for that kind of dependability. Caterpillar's engineering approach is questionable too, at least in hindsight. While they tried new ways to control emissions without using EGR initially, the complexity they added created more problems than solutions. They developed clever features, but sacrificed the legendary reliability that made them famous in the first place. It's like they forgot what made them successful to begin with. Truckers didn't buy Cat engines because they were the most advanced. They bought them because they were the most reliable. But the reality is, with all the design flaws, reliability issues, repair expenses, and business decisions, it just didn't make sense for Caterpillar to keep building truck engines. The mountain of costs they'd face fixing these issues was so high that they decided it just wasn't worth the effort. The regulations weren't going to get any easier to meet. The competition wasn't going to get any less fierce, and the profit margins weren't going to get any bigger. So they made the business decision to exit the market entirely. At the end of the day, Caterpillar wasn't forced to make unreliable engines. They made business decisions that eventually led them to leave the market entirely. But now, I want to hear from you. Would you rather drive a truck with a Caterpillar C15 ACERT or switch to a pre-ACERT 3406E, even if it meant buying an older truck? Is the newer technology worth the reliability problems, or would you prefer the bulletproof design of the older engines? Well, you know what to do. Drop your thoughts in the comment section below. Your experiences and opinions help other truck owners make better decisions. And if you enjoyed this video, hit that like button and subscribe for more truck insights that dig deeper than anyone else. We're committed to tell the real story behind the marketing hype. Until next time, keep on trucking. And remember, knowledge is power when it comes to keeping your rig on the road.